Welcome to our 4-on-4 flag football training for the spring semester of 2022. This training will go through everything that you need to know in order to be able to officiate 4-on-4 flag football for us in the coming weeks. So first, just to get the next date out there, our next date of training, which will be kind of on the field station work, that'll happen on Monday, January 31st at 9 o'clock. We're very limited in the time that we have on the field because we do have to reserve the field house through athletics. So we can't get on the field until 9 o'clock. If you have a whistle, please bring it to training. If you don't have one, we will provide one for you. So again, that's Monday, January 31st at 9 o'clock. I am the manager of intramural sports, Ryan Himes, and then some of the other supervisors that we have on staff that you'll get to work with. Dev Booker, Angela, Rachel Enrique is on the varsity basketball team, so you might not see him a lot right now. Rebecca and Shay. These are my two bosses at Campus Recreation. Nick Weber is our director. He just took over last semester. You might see him around the building or dropping by some of our activities at night, depending on how late he stays. And then Brian Hum is the assistant director, so he's underneath Nick, but that is my direct boss, so he'll definitely pop around to some of our programs to say hello and check in on things. So just some general expectations while you're working in the intramural sports program. Obviously, one of our biggest expectations is to be on time. We got a schedule of games that are set to start at certain times, and if our staff is late, that means the games are going to start late, which means we're going to run late. And running late is not something we want to do when we're already playing until flag football, playing until 11 o'clock at night. We don't want to run any later than that. Make sure you come dressed in appropriate attire with the necessary equipment, so make sure you have your whistle. And make sure that you are up to date on your rules, that you reviewed the material, if there's been any updates or emails or quizzes, that you've done those, and that you're ready to officiate the game to the best of your capabilities. And then obviously, one thing we like to say is that there's 3 teams playing or participating in a flag football game. There's the 2 teams that are obviously playing against each other, but then there's also your team of officials, so you need to work together as a team on and off the field to make sure you get the games done as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the last thing is hustle. 4-on-4 flag football is not as big of a field as 7-on-7, so there won't be as much free movement for you to do, but I do expect you to hustle to your spots and to be in position to make the calls. So for our schedule, WindoWork is what we use. It's an online software. It's where we publish our schedules. You do have the ability to update your availability on WindoWork. Most of you should already know how to do that, but if you don't, there's a video on the next slide that'll kind of cover that. Our schedule comes out every Friday, and when it gets published on Friday, the shifts on it will cover the next week's Monday through Sunday. So we play games between 6 and 11 o'clock depending on the sport. For 4-on-4 flag football, it'll be between 9 and 11. Make sure that you have any changes in your availability into the WindoWork software by 5 o'clock on Monday before I publish the schedule. That way I know that you are not able to work that following week. So WindoWork, here you got a video for you. Okay, this video should walk through how to update your availability. That way, if you have any questions about doing that, or if you're new and haven't done before, it'll show you how to do that. And once you have your class schedule and your practice times and your club meetings and all of that kind of figured out, then you can go in, update your availability so I know when you cannot work. It'll show you in the video, but make sure that you set all of your times that you cannot work in WindoWork, and you can set times that you prefer to work as well. But as long as you don't have the time blocked out in red saying that I'm not able to work, then there's a chance that you would get scheduled for those shifts during those times. So I'm going to play this, it'll take a few minutes, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so that video kind of just walks through how to set your weekly repeating availability and your specific daily availability. So if you ever need to reference back to that, to remember how to do that, the video will be in this training. She'll have linked to, and also they have a YouTube channel, When to Work Does, that has a bunch of tutorials on how to do different things with their website. So if you need any of that information, it is available there as well. So moving on to more about our officiating and our training for 4-on-4 flag football. As a part of the intramural sports team and as an official, we do try to put out weekly emails that have updates and recognitions and everything in them. We're going to try to be better about doing that this semester. Last semester obviously was a little hectic with how short-staffed we were and trying to get games played and everything. So it was difficult to get some of this out, but this semester we're going to try to get back on horse and get some of these weekly updates out to help us grow as officials throughout the season. When you show up for your shift, you should have a pre-shift meeting with whoever the supervisor is. That'll kind of walk through different plays and situations that we should be looking for in 4-on-4 flag football specifically that we've seen from the previous weeks or previous games. Obviously 4-on-4 flag football is going to be a shorter, only a 2-week tournament, so there won't be a lot of weeks to draw off of, so we'll just try to hit the major points throughout the tournament as we go through it. We'll try to get some videos for y'all to watch. If we can get the camera out, it'll depend on how much staff we have available to film games and all of that, though. So your official's uniform, obviously you'll be wearing officiating stripes. You'll check those out from the supervisor at the beginning of each shift. These stripes need to be tucked in. We want to look professional or out on the field, look like we know what we're doing and like we want to be there. So we're going to tuck those in. Your pants or shorts should be athletic and black in color. We can do some dark navy if you have navy and you don't want to go out and get black shorts or pants, but I would definitely recommend that you try to wear black if you've got them. It makes the uniform look cleaner. Jeans, cargo shorts, etc. not allowed. Form-fitting pants and shorts not allowed. Shoes are required while you officiate, and they should be athletic. If you're on turf or if you're outdoors, we'd strongly recommend you wear cleats. Injuries, so obviously intramural sports, sometimes injuries do happen. If you're officiating and an injury happens, notify the supervisor immediately and don't move the injured player. If they're bleeding, they are going to be forced to come out of the game, and we're going to send them to the supervisor so that they can get some bandage or gauze to help with that bleeding. If they are dripping blood, try to keep them in one spot, because if they're dripping blood and you're sending them all over the place, then they're going to continue to drip blood as they walk around, and we're going to have to disinfect all the locations that have been contaminated with blood. So it's much easier to disinfect one spot rather than 5 or 6 or 7 different little drips that they trailed behind them. So now we can get into some of our flag football rules, and so this will be the meat and potatoes of our training for today. So here we go. A lot of this is similar to the 7-on-7 season. 4-on-4 is a very similar sport, just a little bit different in what you can and cannot do because of obviously the smaller field size and the shorter games. So we'll jump into this. All right, so we're going to jump into some of our more specific rules for all of our intramural sports. Obviously, first and foremost, players coming to play, they need to have a zip card to sign in. If they don't have a zip card, we're not going to let them sign in. We're not going to let them play that night. They might try to show you the driver's license or this or that. It's got to be the zip card. Some illegal equipment that we're not going to allow them to play with, no hard-built hats or jewelry. If they have a beanie or a toboggan, it's a soft hat, we can allow them to play with that, but no hard-built hats. No headbands with knots. If they have a knot tied in their headband and at some point they fall to the ground and their head hits the ground and they land on that knot, it can cause some serious damage. So we want to make sure that we don't have any knots out there on the field. And then they must have closed-toed shoes to participate. Players must wear athletic attire, so no jeans, khaki shorts, etc. Just like with what we've got Dress code wise for our officials, the same thing is going to go for our players. And all games will be played in Styles Fieldhouse, so we don't have to worry about being outside in the weather, which is nice. So as an official, you will be keeping score on the field. So this is what some of our scorecards look like. So the things on the scorecard that need to be filled out. So the score for each half has to be filled out. Then the final score and your sportsmanship rating. Any unsportsmanlike conduct penalties will go down here. And then who worked the games will be printed down here at the bottom. You only have to worry about the referee spot and the back judge spot. We don't have line judge and field judge in 4-on-4. But those are essential to get filled out. If we don't have those filled out, then it makes it extremely difficult to go back and verify the score if we need to. So this will be the direct report coming from the field as to what the score was, and then we'll transfer this onto our score sheet. So just in case there's any errors or anything, we can always go back to these scorecards, and the scorecard should be the 100% truth of what happened during the game. So moving on to the next. Equipment. Our field equipment will have pylons, cones, and yardage markers. Player equipment. They have to have shirts under their jerseys, and the shirts must be tucked in. The exception to this will be if a team brings their own jerseys. A lot of our frats have their own jerseys. Some of our other teams do as well. They don't have to wear a shirt under their jersey. But if they're borrowing a penny from us, then they're going to be required to wear a shirt underneath that jersey. They will need to wear a flag belt with 3 flags. The flags should be one on each side and then another one on the back. And if they're wearing a brace on their knee or their ankle or whatever, braces are fine as long as there's no exposed metal. Want to make sure that everybody's safe and protected. Teams are able to use a towel. You'll see this more in outdoor flag football. Indoor flag football, you shouldn't run into this a lot, but teams can bring a towel. That towel must be placed next to the orange cone and not in the player's shorts. If it's in the shorts, it looks like another flag, and we don't want people pulling the towel instead of pulling the flag. And they would use that towel to wipe off the ball if it was like a lot of condensation on the ball or a lot of dew on the grass. But like I said, we'll be in the field house, so you shouldn't see a lot of that. More illegal equipment. These are more specifically for flag football itself. No pockets, no belt loops, and no exposed drawstrings. All of these things act as things that a finger could get stuck in or twisted in, and we don't want any broken fingers coming up because somebody went to grab a flag and their finger got stuck in a belt loop and got twisted. So we want to make sure we don't have any of these things while we're out there. If shirts can't be tucked in, they must be at least 4 inches above the flag belt. We don't want people grabbing the bottoms of shirts and ripping shirts when they're going for flags, and we don't want shirts draping down over the flags and covering them so that the flags can't be pulled. If somebody's wearing a sweatshirt with a hood, then the hood has to be rolled into the back of the sweatshirt, and that sweatshirt cannot have an exposed front pocket either. So if they can't roll the hood inside the sweatshirt, or if it does have a exposed front pocket, then they are not allowed to wear that sweatshirt during the game. No build hats, like we said, bandanas with knots or jewelry, stocking caps are okay, beanies are okay, toboggans are okay. If they're wearing any kind of metal cleats or shoes with metal cleats on them, that is prohibited. We're not going to let metal cleats out there while we play. Team compositions, 4-on-4 flag football is obviously 4-on-4. They'll have 4 players on the field. They must have a minimum of 3 to start the game. Something new we're doing this year or this semester, we don't have a co-rec league, we have an open league. So this open recreation league is played with any combination of players regardless of their gender identification. And just like with our men's and women's league, they must have 3 players to start the game. For the coin toss, the visiting team calls heads or tails or odd or even. I would do odd or even, just put 1 or 2 behind your back is what I would do, and have the opposing team pick either a 1 or a 2, and if they get it correct, then they have the following options. They can choose to start on offense or defense. They can choose the end of the field that they would like to start on, or they can defer their option to the second half. Important that usually a team does not elect to take defense first. What they're usually trying to do is defer their option to the second half. If they do select defense, then that means come the second half, the other team will get to take the choice and the other team could choose offense, which would mean that that team would then have started on offense in both halves. So if a team does say we want to start on defense to you, just kind of nod or push them in the nudge them in the right direction and say you want to defer your option to the second half. And they'll look at you kind of confused and just say, you defer to the second half, then you can pick in the second half. They'll choose to start on offense for the first half. And they can kind of go from there. So kind of help the teams out a little bit if they are confused by the options they have. If the captain defers to the second half, they get to choose one of the first three. So in the once the second half comes around, they can choose offense, defense, or end of field. The option to defer goes away because there's no third period for you to defer your choice to. So after halftime, you have to choose one of the other three options. And then the ball is going to start on the 10-yard line in 4-on-4 flag football. So we're on a smaller field, so the ball is going to start a little bit further back rather than the 14 like in 7-on-7. We're going to start on the 10. Game length. Games are 2 10-minute halves, so already a lot shorter than 7-on-7 flag football. The clock is only going to stop for timeouts until the last 1 minute of the second half. Once we're under 1 minute, the clock will stop according to NERSA and NFHS rules. So example, incomplete passes, out of bounds. We'll go over some of those other clock stoppers later on, but just know that once you're under 1 minute in the second half, that is when you're going to start doing some clock stoppages. The teams will get a 3-minute halftime, and they also get 1 timeout per half. So moving on to some scoring, touchdowns are worth 6 points. You have 3 choices for extra points after you score a touchdown. You can go for 1 point from the 3-yard line, 2 points from the 10-yard line, or 3 points from the 20-yard line. So depending on what the team chooses to do, you'll set them up from that yardage, and then they will get a try. Safeties are worth 2 points. We'll cover a little bit what a touchback is versus a safety in a few slides. And then try and overtime. As we're doing just a tournament, every game there will be no ties. There's the potential for overtime in each game. So a change of possession will end the try or the series. There are no returns during extra point tries or in overtime. So no pick sixes once we get into those situations. Mercy rule. We do have a mercy rule for our games. In order for a team to trigger this mercy rule, they've got to be winning by 50 points at or inside the second half. So anytime at or after halftime. If they go up 50, game is over. Same thing if they go up 19 points at any point at or inside the final 2 minutes of the game, then they will trigger that mercy rule. So here are our clock stoppers for 4-on-4 flag football. They're pretty much exactly the same as 7-on-7 flag football if you did that with us in the fall. Otherwise, these are kind of the big things you need to know. So in the last 1 minute of the second half, our major clock stoppers. And these are going to be our incomplete passes, out of bounds, team timeouts, touchdowns, touchbacks, turnovers, and illegally consuming time, which is a penalty. Anytime you have a major clock stopper, any of those things I just listed, the clock is going to restart on the snap. So once you'll blow your ready for play as a referee, the teams will get up to the line of scrimmage. When they snap the ball, that is when the back judge will start the clock again. Now conversely, you have some minor clock stoppers. These are your first downs, your officials timeouts, penalties, unless a major clock stopper is already in effect with a penalty. For example, with that, player goes out of bounds and then there is a dead ball penalty. If that were to happen, then the major clock stopper, the out of bounds, is already in effect. So that will stay in effect and the clock will start on a snap. Whereas if it's just another penalty and the flow of play before a major clock stopper is in effect, then the clock will start on the whistle with the ready for play, because it's a minor clock stopper. And then inadvertent whistles as well will also be a minor clock stopper. All of those minor clock stoppers mean that when the official blows their ready for play on the whistle is when the back judge will start the clock. So we got a video here. I hope that it plays with just an example of kind of managing the clock and talking to participants.
You're good. No, we don't get a commercial break. First down. Yeah, 20-yard line of game. Play is closed. On the snap. Stop.
So I really like that video because you get to see the referee go through the entire play. Obviously this was a 7-on-7 video. We don't have a lot of 4-on-4 videos, but for this video you can see that the referee talks to players, lets them know the situation. Then he backs up, announces down and distance, and announces when the play will start. So clock will start on the snap. That lets the back judge know, okay, I'm waiting for the snap to start the clock, and make sure the referees are all on the same page with what is going on, as well as the players. And then after the play, you see that the entire crew knew, all right, we've got a turnover. That's going to be a major clock stopper. As soon as the player was downed, you saw them all waving for the clock to stop, and you heard a couple of them say, stop the clock. That way the entire crew and the entire field knew what was going on and that the clock needed to be stopped. We've got another video here that we'll get into that's just more of the clock management from an officiating side.
Hey. We got first down, 20 on the game. First place on the snap. All the way.
I just want a vert. Just give me one.
So again, you hear her back up, she announces her down and distance, and then announces that the clock is going to start on the snap. Just clear communication for all the players and all the officials to know exactly what's going on. Moving on to our next slide, talking about the line of scrimmage a little bit. So the neutral zone, line of scrimmage is where the ball is prior to the snap. The neutral zone is 1 yard wide. So we'll kind of walk through this a little bit when we're down on the field on how to set your neutral zone. But the orange cone will be your offensive side of the ball. The yellow cone will be your defensive side of the ball. And no one is permitted to be in that 1 yard neutral zone, not the offense, not the defense. The only person required to be on the line of scrimmage, which means within a yard of the line of scrimmage, is the snapper. Everyone else must be set at the time of snap. If they are not, it's a live ball penalty. So the snap is required to be one continuous motion. You can't try to fake out the defense with a quick jerk of the ball and then snap it, try to get them off sides. It's got to be one continuous motion. So once the snapper starts to move it back, it has to go all the way back. The player receiving the snap must be at least 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. This will be the quarterback most of the time in 4-on-4 flag football because you can't run the ball through the line of scrimmage. Only one offensive player may be in motion at the time of the snap. So offensive players come up to the line of scrimmage, they get set. Once they're set for a second, then a player can go in motion. As long as that player is motioning horizontally or away from parallel or away from the line of scrimmage, then the motion is legal. If they are in motion towards the line of scrimmage at the time of snap, then it's an illegal motion and it is a penalty. All players must be at least 5 yards away from the sideline and inbounds at the time for the ready for play. So here we go, we got another video about some line of scrimmage stuff.
So yeah, it's frisbees.
Ooh, illegal tap.
No, they're not. They're just down here working out. They're not throwing. I don't care. So yeah,
Watch it again.
Ooh, illegal
And
tap.
you can see.
No, they're not. They're just down here working out. They're not throwing.
I'm gonna try to draw on this. Let's see how this goes. So you can watch center right here.
Ooh,
She
illegal
picks the
tap.
snap up and then throws it back. That is an illegal snap, not one fluid motion. So we'll move on to our second video here, the line of scrimmage. Let's get rid of this pen so we can click it. So we've got the referee over here in the field telling these players back here that they need to back up. So that gets them back and set before the snap. That way we don't have any kind of penalty on them. So that's some preventative officiating right there. You see the players are lined up in the neutral zone. You tell them to back up so you don't have to throw a flag on them. So now we're going to move on to live and dead ball. So a legal snap is when the ball becomes live. Once it goes from the snapper to whoever is receiving the snap, that's the play is started. The ball is live, and it remains live until the down ends. So this happens when an official blows his or her whistle, and the ball is out of play, is dead, the play is over. So all due to course of play is to when you get to the dead ball. So if the player has their flags removed, there's an incomplete pass, player goes out of bounds. Those are all how we're going to get to a dead ball situation from the live ball. The only exception to this will be if we have an inadvertent whistle. That will also end the play and make the ball become dead, but that is not a part of the course of play. It's an inadvertent whistle. So some examples of when a play ends. Player goes out of bounds with the ball, plays over. Any body part of the player touches the ground except their feet, their hand, or the ball, plays over. A pass becomes incomplete, plays over. A backward pass hits the ground, ends the play, not a fumble. Simultaneous catch, plays over. Simultaneous catch always goes to the offense. The flag belt is removed illegally. One hand touch if the flag belt falls off. And that touch needs to be between the knees and the shoulders. We don't want anybody going in for the head or trying to trip a player at the feet. Once the flag belt's removed legally, or one hand touch, if the flag belt falls off on its own, the play is over. If a punt touches a receiving player and hits the ground, then the play is over. We don't need to worry about that when there's no punts in 4-on-4 flag football. And again, the last one, don't need to worry about there's no kicking team in 4-on-4 flag football. So here we go, an example of when a play ends.
Balls away.
So you get an incomplete pass right there in the middle of the field. You hear the whistle come through that signals the end of the play. As always, there needs to be a whistle whenever you've got the play ending and the ball becoming dead. Next one.
Go. Up the middle.
Players running, has their flags pulled. That is when the play becomes dead. You get a whistle from the referee. Another example. This one happens quick. I'll circle it for you. Looking right here. Ball is on the ground. Means it's a dead ball, and the referee gets a whistle, and we pick up that spot where the ball hit the ground. I think this is the last one or two more. Again, ball on the ground, automatically a dead play. We don't want players diving to recover fumbles or anything like that. Ball hits the ground, automatically dead. Interception. We had flags pulled. Once the flags are pulled, play is dead. We get a whistle on that play. Moving on to running the ball. So 4-on-4 flag football, you cannot run the ball through the line of scrimmage. Everything's got to be legal forward passes in 4-on-4 flag football. However, that doesn't mean we don't have runners in 4-on-4 flag football, because a runner is just a player in possession of the ball. So after somebody catches the ball down the field and they start running towards the end zone, they become a runner. They, as a runner, may not stiff arm defensive players or guard the flag belt. And we'll get into penalties a little bit later on. But if you get a player guarding the flag belt or stiff arming a player, you're going to have illegal contact or flag guarding, which will be penalties on the offense. The ball may be handed in any direction, so players are allowed to hand the ball off. But if they drop the ball and the ball strikes the ground, it's dead where the ball hits the ground, and belongs to the team who fumbled it. We do not have change of possession on fumbles. Here's an example of a running play, even though you won't see this specific play in 4-on-4 flag football, just to give you an idea of what a runner looks like and how those plays kind of go.
Go.
Third down, third down.
Go.
So you kind of see that play. The player runs it, gets their flags pulled, referee grabs the spot, and announces the down. Moving on to passing. 4-on-4 flag football is a passing game. There will be passing on every play. So a team is permitted one forward pass per down. It must be from behind the line of scrimmage, and it must be thrown before a change of possession. Once the ball is thrown, it is considered a pass until it is caught or incomplete. So as long as the ball is in the air, it is a passing play. Any player is eligible to catch a pass, with the exception of a player intentionally going out of bounds. So player goes out of bounds intentionally to try to get an advantage, getting around a player, and then comes back in and catches the ball. That is illegal. There you cannot do that. A team may throw as many backward passes or pitches as they like, and they can be thrown anywhere on the field. The exception to this, and I highly doubt you see this, but there is illegal batting, which means that a backwards pass or pitch gets batted forward by a player, and now it's moved into a forward pass territory. So anytime you see that, you do have to call that as illegal batting, but that's not something you should run into a whole lot, if at all. So an example of a passing play here.
Go.
Ball's away! First down, first down.
Go.
So the quarterback gets the ball,
Ball's away!
throws it, and the player runs it.
First down,
This
first down.
play would not be legal in
Go.
4-on-4 flag football because of where he catches
Ball's
the ball
away!
and where the line of scrimmage is. He needs to be past the line of scrimmage. You cannot run the ball through the
First
line
down.
of scrimmage in 4-on-4 flag football. So a catch. A legal catch is a player must have possession of the ball. They must land their first contact in bounds with at least 1 foot or another body part. If a ball is caught simultaneously by an offensive and defensive player, it is dead and belongs to the offense. So always give simultaneous catch to the offense. If they're going to the ground, they must complete the catch all the way through the process. And after an incomplete pass, the ball is next snapped at the previous spot, which is the orange puck, or the offensive marker at the line of scrimmage. So here's an example of a going to the ground situation. There's this video and then another one that'll follow it with another camera shot of the same play. So let's watch this first one. We'll run it through a couple times.
13. Bledsoe, 4 wide receivers for Sam Van Doren. He's flush. It's Bowers chasing him. That ball 13.
So you see what they mean by going to the ground. He's diving as he makes this catch. So he's got to hold possession of this ball all the way through the process of the catch. Run this through one more time, then we'll go through. Kind of think about if you think he made this catch or not. He's got to be inbounds, remember, with his body foot down. So here we go. This is the other camera angle.
Laying out for the ball.
Look at that. Does he have, now you ask yourself, does he have possession? Does he get a body part down inbounds? So the first thing we can look at, let me get my pen ready as this plays back through. So we're going to have the catch here, and we got a foot here. I don't see the ball move, so that looks like a good catch, like he completed it all the way through the process. We've got another example here of a play. This is Dez Bryant. This was a very controversial play in the NFL that led to a rule change. But same concept. We're looking at a player going up, and he's got to make the catch, and then control it through the process. So he's got the catch. Now the question will be, does he control that through the process of the catch? At the time, the answer was no, but they've now since changed the rule in the NFL. But So that's another example there. And then we got one more play. It'll be Des Bryant again. He seems to have a knack for making these kinds of plays. Goes up. So this one you're looking for, obviously he's got possession of the ball. He caught the ball all the way through. You're looking for, does he get a body part in bounds? His legs are not going to come down in bounds. His legs are out of bounds. So you need another body part. I can't really slow this down or stop it, but if you watch his hip on the back line here, his hip, let me erase that, that's a bad line. His hip rate there comes down inbounds, and that is a catch. So moving on away from passing and catching and running to another concept that's important in flag football is our blocking, screen blocking. So this first line is actually not right, so we're gonna ignore this right here. There is no rushing in 4-on-4 flag football. So once the ball is snapped, the defense has to drop back and play coverage. They can try to knock a ball down at the line of scrimmage, but they cannot rush the passer. The way that blocking is still important, though, is if the offense completes a pass, then their players can block downfield for those runners that have the ball. So either team may obstruct an opponent by getting in their way, but they must keep their arms to the side or in front to protect themselves. Any contact outside the frame of body is an illegal contact foul. If contact does occur, you have to ask yourself who initiated the contact. If you officiated basketball or watched basketball, think about a block charge play in basketball. Where's that contact initiate? Who initiates it? That's 99 times out of 100 who committed the foul. So here's a video that kind of goes through and talks about screen blocking.
Screen blocking is used by the offense to prevent the opponent from getting to an advantageous spot on the field. Contact during a screen block may or may not be legal. The use of screen blocking is common in flag football. The legal screen greatly reduces the potential for injury. Screen blockers must have their hands to their sides or behind their back. Any use of the hands, arms, or elbows during a screen block is illegal. It is also illegal for a screen blocker to use their legs against an opponent. An opponent must go around the offensive player in order to avoid contact. If the opponent charges into an offensive player who has established position during a screen block, it is illegal contact.
So that's just talking about screen blocking more. Here are a couple more video examples of what it looks like in slow motion. No rushing in 4-on-4 flag football, but if you do see a situation where contact occurs like that, that's a penalty. Conversely, if you have, that's the same video. Never mind. So if they run through somebody like that, that is going to be a penalty on the person who initiates the contact. This is another different video. See how he sticks his leg out to trip. That is not a legal play. That is illegal contact, that time on the offense. For some reason this is going to play again. There you see the trip. So moving back, we touched on safeties and touchbacks earlier, but we said we'd get back to it at a later slide, and here we are. So these rules are applied around the goal line, and you must ask yourself in these plays, is the ball in the team's own end zone? Was the ball declared dead in the end zone? And was the team who put the ball in the end zone in possession? If the answer to all of these is yes, then you have a safety. And a safety, the defensive team is awarded 2 points. So any other situation, you might have a touchback or a touchdown if it's not their own end zone. So you have to be aware of what situation you're in and go through the checklist of those 3 questions. And if all 3 are yes, then you've got to have a safety. So the momentum rule. This is a wordy slide. But the gist of it is that if a defensive player catches a fumble, forward or backward pass, or a kick, or recovers a kick between his or her 5-yard line and the goal line, only if his or her momentum carries him or her into the end zone and the ball becomes dead. That's the only way that this rule is going to apply. The defensive team, if this rule is in effect because of one of the above situations was met, the defensive team will have the ball at the spot of the catch/recovery if the ball is declared dead in the end zone in its team's possession without having returned to the field of play, which means they didn't advance out of the end zone. That's a lot of explanation or a lot of words, but I've got a video that'll explain it better than the words do, and hopefully clear up any confusion about what this is talking about. So this video here, you're going to see the quarterback throw a pass. It's going to get intercepted, and you'll see what they mean by momentum rule within the 5-yard line.
Getting empty backfield. 3 receivers right, 2 left. 4. Looking deep. Has a receiver streaking down the middle, but overthrows him, and it's picked off. Picked off by Justice.
So much air under this ball.
So the ball is intercepted at about the 4-yard line.
Goes for the ball and comes up with a big play.
See how the momentum of the player carries him backwards into the end zone. The defensive team is going to get this ball at the 4-yard line because it's momentum that carried him backwards within the 5-yard line. So your momentum rule comes into effect. A very situational play that you won't see a lot in flag football, but it is good to be aware of in case you do, because you don't want to be awarding a safety in this situation, because when you go through your checklist, is it the player's own end zone? Yes. Was the ball or the play declared dead in the end zone? Yes. And was the player or the team that had the ball in the end zone in possession? Yes. That's all 3 on the checklist. So you run into, well, this should be a safety, but it's not, because of the momentum rule. This player was actually down at the 4-yard line. Overtime. So we do have overtime in 4-on-4 flag football. The visiting team will call this coin toss, just like the beginning of the game. You'll go through the entire coin toss again. Their options change a little bit in overtime. There is no more deferring. You don't defer in overtime. Your options are offense, defense, or side of field. And you'll play towards the same goal line on all overtimes. So if a team elects to pick the side of field, that's the side that both teams will use each time. If you play a first overtime and you're still tied, in the second overtime you're going to switch who goes first on offense and defense. So team starts on offense in first overtime, teams stay tied, that means that team is going to start on defense in the second overtime. And if you need to go to a third overtime, you'll flip it again and they'll start on offense again. You get 1 timeout for the entire overtime. So if you use your timeout in the first overtime and you end up in a 5th overtime, you don't get another timeout. You used your 1 for that entire session. Now, how overtime is played, teams will choose to try for 1, 2, or 3 points. They will get 1 down, 1 try to complete this. 1 point from the 3-yard line, 2 points from the 10-yard line, 3 points from the 20-yard line. It's just like your extra point tries, but now it's overtime to win the game. So team goes for 1 point if they get the ball first in overtime, and they get it. But then their opponent goes for 2 points, and they get it. The team that went for 2 points wins the game because they would have scored 1 more point in overtime. So that's kind of how overtime's set up. And you only get 1 attempt at it. Just like with an extra point, that's the way that overtime is played in 4-on-4 flag football. Sportsmanship rating. This is very important to our teams. Sportsmanship is graded on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. Teams must average a 9 rating throughout the season to be eligible for playoffs. Each game is worth a total of 10 points, but points will be deducted for the following reasons. If they get a warning, a team warning, they'll lose a point. Unsportsmanlike conduct. This is why it's so important that we document those on the scorecards. Unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. That'll be a 3-point deduction. If they default a game, which means they let the office know ahead of time that they're not going to come, that'll be a 3-point deduction. If they have a player ejected, that is a 7-point deduction from that game. And if they forfeit a game, so they don't notify anybody in advance that they aren't coming, they just don't show up, then that is another 7-point deduction for that game. Handling conflict. So this is something, as an official, one of the most intimidating parts about officiating is knowing that you're going to be in situations where you have to handle conflict. So the ways or the tools that we use to handle conflict are on the next slide, I believe, but this is kind of getting into that, about knowing what the player is upset about. Before you can figure out how you need to address a situation, you need to know how and why the player is upset. So if they're mad about a call and they don't personally attack you, leave it alone. You don't need to trouble. So they say, that's horrible. Okay, they think your call is horrible. That's fine. They're entitled to think your call is horrible. Your call is probably correct. They're just upset that it went against their team or whatever, and they're going to be upset about that. We're not going to punish them for having emotions about a call. If they attack you or use profane language, you need to address this immediately. So, you are horrible. Are you effing kidding me? Those are situations where we move into a situation that we need to address what they are doing. No longer is it just about the call. Now it's about you as an official or you as a person, and we're not going to let that stand. The other situation that you need to step in quickly on is if they are baiting an opponent. We don't want anything result in fighting. So if they're trying to trash talk their opponent, get under their skin, taunting, baiting, we're gonna get on that right away. We're not gonna let that develop any further, because if we get into a situation where we got to fight, then we've got a lot more that we got to clean up. So we want to make sure that the player that's trying to instigate that gets dealt with quickly. So your steps in handling conflict. Your first step, and the one that you'll use the most, is kind of your quiet word. You have a little one-on-one chat where only you and a player can hear it. So a player goes deep down the field, they're trying to catch the ball, and they drop it. And they say the F word under their breath, but loud enough that you can hear it. You kind of, as you're walking back up the field, say, hey buddy, I heard what you said, can you watch that language for me? The player's most of the time going to be like, oh yeah, sorry, my bad. And then they're going to go back and make the next play. So that quiet word kind of diffuses a lot of situations, so you don't have to get into a situation where you're giving out a lot of unsportsmanlike conducts or flags. So make sure you use that when you can. Your public warning is when you've got a player that has been giving you problems all game long, and you've reached the point where you cannot deal with them anymore. You're gonna look at them. You're gonna say loud enough for everybody to hear, that's enough, and you might put a hand out, like your stop sign, your audible stop sign. That's enough. They let them know you're not taking anymore, and if they continue to go, then you're going to have to give them a penalty, and unsportsmanlike conduct. Captain's meeting. This is not something you want to do late in the game. If you let a game go and go and go, and you're not addressing any of the physicality or anything that's happening, and you try to pull the captains together late in a game in the second half, it's not going to achieve anything. They're not going to listen to you. So get your captains with you early. If you notice that a game is chippy, that a game is out of hand, before halftime, at halftime, get your captains together and tell them that you're going to start calling a lot more. You're going to buckle the game down and make sure that everything is getting called if they don't get their teams under control. The captains most of the time will help you out. They will be your friend. So use them, but don't do it late in the game. It has to be something you do early. Unsportsmanlike conduct, like I mentioned, this is part of your toolbox. Use it. If you have to give somebody an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, give it to them. If you have to question if they deserve it or not, they probably deserve it. And then lastly is an ejection. This is your last resort, but if somebody crosses the line, they've got to go. And the biggest thing with handling conflict is you don't want to make threats. If you say one more word and you're gone, and the player on the other team and the player that you're talking to says word, now you're going to have to eject the player for saying word when that's not really something they should be ejected for. So you don't want to make a threat, but you do want to make sure that when you draw a line that you're drawing it in concrete and not in sand. Because when you draw a line in sand, you can erase that line and move it back, and players can step over that. And you don't want to allow players to keep stepping over the lines you make. Once you draw that line, that's got to be where you set the line and where you set the standard and what you're going to enforce. So this is just a little video about finding a friend on the field. So after the play here, one of the players has, I believe, a shirt untucked. So the referee walks up to the player, says, your player needs to tuck in the shirt in the back. player will then go and address their player, get them to tuck in their shirt. Once it is tucked in, we'll return. Yeah, it's right here, number 20. You see him tucking in his shirt now. He'll put his flags back on, and we'll play. The referee didn't have to go talk to that player specifically. The referee built this connection with this player. He knew this player would help him out. Said, hey, can you tell your buddy he needs to tuck in his shirt? It's untucked in the back. The player's like, yep. He calls to his player, gets the shirt tucked in, and we get ready for the next play. All right, so now we're going to move into positioning and the positions we have on a field. We've only got a few slides left for this first part of training. This is going to go a lot faster than 7-on-7 flag football because we don't have as many positions. The two positions we have on a field for 4-on-4 flag football are the referee and the back judge. The referee is going to start on the line of scrimmage for each game or each play. The back judge is going to start on the zone line to gain down the field. So, referee positioning. You're starting opposite side of the back judge, so you want your referee spread across the field so that you see everything that's happening. You got the entire field boxed in. As the referee, you're responsible for line of scrimmage infractions. You're announcing that the ball is away when the quarterback releases the ball. You're watching the quarterback for roughing the passer infractions, which shouldn't occur because there is no rushing in 4-on-4 flag football. But just in case something crazy does happen, you've got those responsibilities, and you're watching the line of scrimmage for illegal advancements. Referee, continuing with your pre-snap responsibilities, you're counting the number of offensive flag belts, making sure all players have flag belts on, and that the flags are properly on, with a flag on each side, each hip, and on the back. Ensure all players come set before the ball is snapped, and make sure the quarterback is at least 2 yards back from the snapper to receive the ball. At the snap, you're ensuring that no one is moving forward. Otherwise, as we talked about before, you have that illegal motion. Make sure the snap is one continuous motion backwards, and there is no rushing in 4-on-4, so you shouldn't have any illegal contact or defensive players at the line of scrimmage kind to rush the quarterback, and if you do, you know to look for that and call those penalties. After the play, if you've got no penalties, move the ball spotters to where the play ended, so your orange and yellow cones, and use the back judge to make the spot. If there is a penalty or penalties, find out what the penalties are, signal, so this is where SAGA comes in, your SAGA. Signal the penalties so that both teams know what the call is. You're going to ask the captain what they want to do. So if it's illegal contact on the offense, you're going to ask the defensive captain if they'd like to accept or decline the penalties and kind of explain to them what those are, what those options entail. Next is your go. You're going to march off the penalty yardage, and then you're going to announce the penalty so that everybody can hear. So you'll square yourself up with the line of scrimmage, and you'll say illegal contact offense, and then you'll announce the penalty yardage and the new down and distance. Moving into the back judge position, you're going to start down the field on the zone line to gain. On the opposite side is the referee, or a step behind the deepest player. You're going to stay deep and wide throughout the play. You don't want to get beat to the zone line to gain or to the end zone. Your first step will be backwards, and then you're going to mark the spot after the play for the referee to set the new line of scrimmage. Pre-snap, you're counting the defensive flag belts. Make sure all players have their belts on, and that they're on one flag on each hip and one on the back. And you're going to pick up matchups that may go deep and watch those for illegal contacts or pass interferences. Watch for illegal substitutions, which shouldn't happen, and periodically update the time. So as you go through the half, starting at 10, update when they're down to 8 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then once you get down to 5 seconds, count it down to 0 as we come into the halftime or the end of the game. At the snap, you're going to watch the receivers coming off the line on your side and those matchups that are going deep down the field. You're responsible for contact in the middle of the field. You want to make sure you keep the play boxed in with the referee, so don't cheat too far to the middle of the field. You want all the players between you and the referee. Remember that pass interference restrictions, offensive pass interference begins at the snap, whereas defensive begins when the ball is in the air. If there's any contact before that, it's illegal contact or holding on the defense, not pass interference. The ball has to be in the air for defensive pass interference. After the play, the back judge, you're holding the end of the run or the spot of the D flag or where the ball hit the ground. So you're holding that mark for the referee, and then you're also cleaning up sidelines. So if the play goes out of bounds, then you're going to get the mark, and then you're going to make sure that the players come back in bounds without issue. So communication with your partners visually and audibly between downs. You want to make sure that both referee and back judge know what down it is, know whether it's a dead ball or a live ball, and make sure that if the clock is rolling or the clock is stopped. You want to make sure that everybody is on the same page about the situation between plays. So like I said before, we're going to have our upcoming training Monday, January 31st, 9 p.m. That will be in the field house. So go to the Oasis office first so that you can clock in, and then we will move over to the field house to do station work. Probably show up. We want to get started at 9 o'clock, so show up around 8:45 to get clocked in, and we can move on over to the field house together and get everything squared away. Bring your whistle if you've been provided one in the past. If you're not and you're new, we will provide a whistle for you. We just had to order some more, so hopefully we have them in by then. Otherwise, we'll give you an electric whistle for that specific training day. But that'll be our next training date. There's also going to be a video with penalties and talking about penalties, because that is important as well. So you'll need to watch that video after this one, and then that'll be all of our training content. So on Monday, we're going to jump straight into stations and try to get some quick station work knocked out. Hopefully only have you there for an hour or so while we talk through some on-the-field stuff and practice our whistle blowing and setting our line of scrimmage and our positioning and some of the more important things to focus on as we work on being on the field and getting ready for games to start on Tuesday, February 1st. All right, so look for that second video, and then I will see you at training next week.